The scene opens with a view of a high-tech medical clinic. The room is sterile, bathed in soft white light. The sleek furniture and modern equipment suggest a futuristic setting. In the center of the room sits Sarah, a woman in her mid-30s, her expression tense but resolute. Her hands grip the armrests of a medical chair, fingers tapping anxiously. A doctor, Dr. Lewis, late 40s, with sharp, calculating eyes and a calm demeanor, approaches Sarah with a clipboard in hand. The faint hum of machinery in the background fills the sterile silence.
Sarah, I know this must feel overwhelming, but I assure you you're in good hands. The memory retrieval process is perfectly safe.
I don't know what I'm going to find in there. What if I don't want to remember?
Dr. Lewis moves closer, his voice dropping into a soothing tone, but with a subtle undertone of urgency.
That's why you're here, Sarah. Whatever trauma you've been carrying all these years, it's affecting your life. This will help you let go.
Sarah hesitates, staring at the complex machinery surrounding the chair. Her past, hazy, fragmented, has haunted her for years. Flashes of an event she can't fully recall drift through her mind, like ghosts in a fog.
I don't remember anything from when I was 8. Just a few flashes. It's like my mind locked it all away.
Dr. Lewis places a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm but meant to reassure.
We've successfully helped dozens of patients with similar blockages. Repressed memories can be painful, but facing them is the only way to heal.
Sarah is now lying on the chair, electrodes attached to her head. A large, circular machine hums above her. Dr. Lewis stands by a control panel, adjusting the dials. The soft hum of the machine grows louder, and Sarah's eyes flutter closed. The screen in front of Dr. Lewis displays a complex neural pattern, waves of data scrolling as the machine scans her brain. Dr. Lewis watches intently as Sarah begins to drift into a semi-conscious state. Her body still, but her mind active. At first it's black, complete silence. Then a faint whisper, a flicker of something. A memory starts to take form. The air feels thick, as if she's moving through water. Suddenly the scene shifts. Sarah is no longer in the clinic. She's now standing in the middle of a lively house party. The air smells of smoke and perfume. The colors are vibrant. Neon lights flashing in sync with the music. People dance, laugh, clink glasses. But Sarah doesn't recognize any of them. She looks down and gasps. Her hands are different, older, with red nail polish. She's wearing a vintage-style dress, not her usual clothing. Confusion washes over her as she touches her face, feeling features that don't seem to be her own. She spins around, scanning the room for something familiar. The more she looks, the more she realizes these people, this house. Nothing connects to her own life. A woman's voice calls out.
Sarah?
But it's not Sarah's name that's called. It's Rachel. She hears it again. Rachel, Rachel, come over here. Panicking, Sarah looks around and sees a reflection in a nearby mirror. A woman with a short, curled 1980s hair and bright red lipstick. It's not Sarah. It's someone else. Someone who looks like she belongs to this time. The reflection is Rachel Turner.
Who is Rachel?
Her breathing becomes heavy. The edges of the room blur, and the faces start to distort, becoming hazy and grotesque, as if the memory is crumbling. Sarah jolts awake, gasping for air. The chair beneath her feels cold and foreign. The familiar hum of the machine brings her back to reality, but her mind races with what she just saw. Dr. Lewis quickly moves to her side, monitoring the equipment.
Take deep breaths, Sarah. It's over for now.
She looks at him, her face pale and covered in a light sheen of sweat.
That wasn't me. I was someone else.
Dr. Lewis narrows his eyes, then gives her a measured smile.
Sometimes memories are layered with dreams. The mind plays tricks when we unlock things that have been hidden for too long.
Sarah's heart pounds in her chest. That wasn't a dream. It was too vivid, too real.
I was someone named Rachel Turner. She was at a party. How could I have seen that?
Dr. Lewis hesitates, just for a moment, before his expression shifts back into calm professionalism.
It's not uncommon for the mind to borrow images or names from things you may have seen or read in the past. Don't worry, Sarah. We'll continue the sessions, and soon the true memories will surface.
Sarah isn't convinced. There's something about the way Dr. Lewis says it, something unsettling. Later that night, Sarah sits on her couch, staring at her laptop. She types Rachel Turner, 1980s, into a search engine, curiosity gnawing at her. The results load slowly, and her eyes scan the page. There, among the articles, is a headline that makes her stomach drop. Rachel Turner. Woman disappeared in 1983. Case still unsolved. Sarah stares at the screen, her breath caught in her throat. The woman in the photo looks just like the reflection she saw in the memory.
Who the hell is Rachel Turner?
The room is dimly lit by the glow of Sarah's laptop screen. The search result stares back at her. The words, Rachel Turner, woman disappeared in 1983. Case still unsolved. Glaring on the screen like an accusation, Sarah's breath is shallow. She can't shake the image from her memory, the party, the mirror, the reflection of Rachel. It's too real to be a dream or some fragment of a past TV show she'd forgotten. She clicks on the article. The screen fills with grainy images of a woman in her late 20s, Rachel Turner. Sarah's stomach tightens. The resemblance is undeniable. Rachel's face, her hair, even her posture. It's exactly what Sarah saw in the mirror during the procedure. The article details Rachel's life. She was a young woman living in the city, an artist, someone who frequented parties and gatherings. But one night, she vanished without a trace. No suspects were ever identified. No body was ever found.
What happened to you?
She scrolls down, finding more articles, photos, and theories from online sleuths who never gave up on the case. Some believe Rachel was killed by someone she knew. Others think she ran away to escape something or someone. But no one really knows. Sarah's mind races. Why did she see Rachel's memory? Was it part of the procedure or something else? Why would she remember someone she had no connection to? Her phone buzzes on the coffee table, snapping her out of her thoughts. She glances at it. Unknown number. Frowning, she hesitates, then picks it up.
Hello?
There's silence on the other end. Just faint breathing.
Hello? Who is this?
Still nothing. She's about to hang up when she hears a voice, low and distorted.
Stop looking.
Her heart pounds in her chest.
What? Who is this?
The line goes dead. She stares at the phone, her pulse racing. That voice. She didn't recognize it, but the message was clear. Someone knew what she was doing. Sarah is back at the clinic, sitting across from Dr. Lewis. His calm, measured demeanor is unchanged as he reviews her last session on a tablet.
It's not unusual for patients to experience fragmented memories, Sarah. What you saw, it could be your mind's way of processing something you've suppressed.
I'm telling you, I saw someone else's memory. A woman named Rachel Turner, and she disappeared in the 1980s. How could I know about that if it wasn't real?
Dr. Lewis sets down his tablet and leans forward slightly, his voice soft but firm.
Memory can be unreliable. It's possible you came across her story at some point in the past, maybe even subconsciously. The procedure can sometimes dredge up things we don't consciously recall.
Sarah shakes her head, her eyes narrowing.
No, this was different. I wasn't just remembering something I'd read. I was her. I felt everything. The music, the people, the house. It was like I was living it.
Dr. Lewis raises an eyebrow, his gaze steady.
I understand how unsettling this must be, but we need to stay focused on your recovery. The memories you're seeking are your own. We'll continue with the next session, and I'm confident we'll find the answers you're looking for.
He stands, signaling the end of the conversation.
Let's set up another session for tomorrow.
Sarah remains seated, biting her lip. Something about Dr. Lewis's calmness feels off. There's a growing unease in her stomach. Why isn't he more interested in what she's discovered? Why is he so eager to continue? Later that night, Sarah walks through the city streets, bundled up in her coat. Her mind is a storm of thoughts, the phone call, the memories, and Dr. Lewis's casual dismissal swirling around her. She stops at a crosswalk and waits for the light to change. Her eyes wander, and she notices a man standing across the street, staring directly at her. He's tall, wearing a dark coat and a cap pulled low over his face. The man doesn't break eye contact. He's standing too still, too focused. Her skin prickles, the light changes, and she steps forward, hurrying across the street. But she feels his eyes following her. She picks up the pace, her breath quickening. Glancing back over her shoulder, she sees him cross the street too. He's following her. Panic surges through her. Sarah ducks into an alley, pressing herself against the wall, her breath ragged. She listens carefully, the sound of footsteps growing closer, slow and deliberate. Her pulse thunders in her ears. Then, the footsteps stop. She peeks around the corner. The man is standing at the mouth of the alley, just a few feet away, his head tilted slightly, as if he's watching her. Her heart slams in her chest. Suddenly, a passing car's headlights flood the alley, and when she looks again, the man is gone. Sarah bursts into her apartment, slamming the door behind her. She locks it quickly, her hands trembling. Her phone buzzes again. She glances down at it. Another call from the same unknown number. Sarah's hands shake as she answers.
Who are you?
This time, the voice on the other end is clearer.
You're remembering things that aren't yours to remember. Stop looking, Sarah, before it's too late.
She grips the phone tighter.
What do you want from me?
The voice pauses, then responds in a chilling, measured tone.
Forget her. Forget Rachel Turner.
Click. The call ends again. Sarah stands frozen, the phone still in her hand, as the reality of her situation sinks in. Someone doesn't want her to dig deeper into Rachel's past, but now, more than ever, she's determined to find out why. The next day, Sarah walks into the clinic, her face set with determination. Dr. Lewis greets her, as calm as always.
Are you ready for today's session?
Sarah stares at him for a moment, her mind racing with questions. But instead of confronting him, she simply nods. As the machine hums to life and she slips back into the procedure, Sarah silently vows to uncover the truth about Rachel Turner, no matter the cost. Sarah is back in the chair, the hum of the machine louder this time, vibrating in her ears as it prepares for the next memory session. Her breathing is shallow, her hands gripping the armrests tighter than before. Her heart races with a mix of fear and determination, fear of what she might uncover, and determination to find the truth about Rachel Turner. Darkness envelops her mind again, but this time the memories don't appear slowly. They rush at her, overwhelming her senses. The memory is vivid. Rachel, is standing on a quiet suburban street, under the glow of a street lamp. The houses are lined neatly, every lawn perfectly trimmed. The air is crisp, and a faint breeze rustles the leaves on the ground. Rachel looks around, nervous. The street is empty, but she knows she's being watched. Her breath is shaky as she starts to walk down the street, quickening her pace with every step. A shadow looms behind her, always just out of sight.
He's watching me again.
Her steps become frantic, almost a run, as she approaches her house. She glances over her shoulder, but there's no one there. Yet, she can feel it. The eyes, always on her. Rachel bursts through the front door, slamming it behind her. She leans against it, trying to steady her breathing. The house is dimly lit, eerily silent. She makes her way through the house, heading toward a small room in the back. The room is filled with files, photos, and notes pinned to the walls, an investigation of sorts. There, in the center of the wall, is a photo of Dr. Lewis, looking younger but still unmistakable. Other photos and articles surround his, detailing memory experiments, missing people, and classified documents. Rachel grabs a folder from the desk and opens it, revealing a thick set of papers. The top one reads, Project Echo, Memory Transfer, Protocol, Classified. Rachel's fingers tremble as she flips through the pages, her eyes scanning the text frantically. She knows too much, and she's running out of time. Suddenly, the faint sound of footsteps echoes from outside the house. Rachel freezes.
He's here.
Sarah wakes with a start, her heart pounding in her chest. She's drenched in sweat, her body shaking as she comes back to reality. The familiar clinic feels distant, as if she's still trapped in Rachel's world. Dr. Lewis stands nearby, watching her carefully, his expression unreadable.
Another breakthrough?
Sarah looks up at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and fear.
I was her again. I was Rachel. She was investigating something. Project Echo.
Dr. Lewis's face twitches, just for a split second, before he regains his calm composure.
Project Echo was a failed experiment. Something from years ago, long before you were born. It has nothing to do with your recovery.
Sarah narrows her eyes at him. The name Project Echo feels too important, too connected to be a coincidence.
Then why do I remember it? Why was Rachel running from someone?
Dr. Lewis steps closer, his voice dropping into a patronizing tone.
Your mind is playing tricks on you, Sarah. Project Echo is just a fragment of Rachel's life, something you may have picked up from the research you've been doing. Don't let it distract you from your own memories.
Sarah's mind spins, but something inside her tells her not to trust him. The way he's avoiding the question feels calculated, like he's hiding something.
I want another session. I need to see more.
Dr. Lewis gives her a long, hard look, his professional mask slipping ever so slightly.
You're pushing yourself too far. Take some time to rest. We can continue later.
But Sarah doesn't plan to wait. Back in her apartment, Sarah paces restlessly, her mind churning with the details from the latest memory. The man following Rachel. Was he the same one following her now? Was Dr. Lewis part of this? What was Project Echo? The pieces of the puzzle swirl in her head, but nothing quite fits. Suddenly her phone buzzes on the table, startling her. She picks it up, her pulse quickening when she sees the words unknown number flashing on the screen again. Her hand shakes as she answers.
Who is this?
The same low, distorted voice responds.
You know who I am.
Her breath catches in her throat.
Stop digging into Rachel's life. You're walking the same path she did.
What happened to her? Who killed her?
There's a pause on the other end, the silence stretching for what feels like an eternity. Then the voice responds, colder than before.
She knew too much, just like you do now.
Who are you?
The voice is quiet for a moment. Then it speaks again, softer, almost with a hint of sadness.
I was trying to protect her, but I failed.
Sarah's heart races. The voice isn't just a threat. It's someone with a personal connection to Rachel.
Don't make the same mistake she did.
The line goes dead. Sarah stands frozen, the phone still in her hand, her mind reeling. The man who's been following her isn't just part of the conspiracy. He was there with Rachel. He tried to protect her, but something went wrong. Sarah walks quickly down the sidewalk, her eyes darting around, searching for any sign of the man. The streets are quiet. The only sound, the distant hum of traffic, and the occasional footstep. She feels it again, that prickling sensation at the back of her neck, like she's being watched. Suddenly, she sees him. The man is standing across the street, partially hidden in the shadows. His face is obscured by a hood, but she knows it's him, the same figure that's been following her for days. Sarah's pulse quickens. She takes a deep breath and steps toward him, her voice shaking but determined.
Who are you?
The man doesn't move at first, just watches her silently from the shadows.
Why are you following me? What do you want?
For a moment it seems like he won't answer. Then finally he steps forward, just enough for the dim streetlight to catch his face. He's older than she expected, his eyes tired but sharp.
I'm trying to keep you safe.
Safe from what? From who? I don't even know who you are.
He hesitates, glancing around as if to make sure they're alone. His face remains unreadable, but there's a flicker of something behind his eyes. Regret, maybe even fear.
It's not important who I am. What matters is that you're digging into things you shouldn't be, things that got Rachel killed.
Sarah's heart races at the mention of Rachel. The man knows more than he's letting on. She takes a step closer, her voice firmer now.
What happened to Rachel? Was she murdered? Was it because of Project Echo?
The man stiffens at the name. For a brief moment, his calm exterior cracks, and Sarah catches a glimpse of the conflict beneath. He lowers his voice, speaking barely above a whisper.
Rachel got too close to the truth. She found out about the experiments, about how they were using people, transferring memories, erasing lives.
Sarah's eyes widen, her mind racing.
Project Echo, what was it?
The man's expression darkens, his voice growing more serious.
It was supposed to be revolutionary, a way to help people recover lost memories, even implant new ones to treat trauma. But it became something else. They started using it to hide things, dangerous things. Rachel found out they were using people without their consent, erasing parts of their past, making them forget things that were never meant to be forgotten.
Sarah takes a step back, the gravity of his words settling in. If Rachel discovered something so dangerous, then she must have been silenced for it. But why is this man telling her all of this now?
And you? What's your role in all of this?
The man's jaw tightens, and for a moment it seems like he might not answer. Then with a deep breath, he speaks.
I was supposed to watch her, keep her from going too far, but I failed. She disappeared and they covered it up.
Sarah's heart pounds in her chest. This man had been involved in Rachel's life, watching her just as he's been watching Sarah. But now, it seems like he's trying to protect her from meeting the same fate.
You think I'm going to stop? After everything I've seen? After everything I've remembered?
The man's face hardens.
That's exactly why you need to stop. I couldn't save Rachel, but I can still save you. If you keep digging, they'll come for you too.
And let them. I'm not Rachel. I won't just disappear without a fight.
The man steps forward, his voice low and intense.
You're more like her than you realize. You're already in too deep.
Later that night, Sarah sits at her kitchen table, staring at a stack of files she managed to print out from online articles and archives. The conversation with the man echoes in her head, every word adding another layer to the growing mystery. Her phone sits beside her, ominously silent for now, but she feels like she's waiting for it to ring again. She picks up one of the files, a printout of Rachel Turner's last known activities, photos of Rachel at various parties, news clippings about her art, and the missing persons report. One line stands out, "No body recovered." The man's warning replays in her mind, "They'll come for you." Sarah sets the file down and opens her laptop. She types Project Echo into the search bar, but the results are minimal, scrubbed clean from any official sources. The experiment has been buried deep. There has to be something they missed, she thought. Suddenly, her phone buzzes. The screen lights up. Unknown number. Her stomach drops, and her hand hovers over the phone. After a beat, she answers, her voice shaky.
Hello?
This time, there's no voice. Just the faint sound of breathing, followed by a single sentence, whispered so softly she almost misses it.
Look behind you.
Sarah's breath catches in her throat. She whirls around, scanning the room, but there's nothing. The apartment is still. Her heart hammers in her chest as she grabs her phone and dashes to the front door, checking the locks. she hears a creak. Her hand shakes as she slowly turns toward the back hallway, where the door to her bedroom is slightly ajar. She could have sworn she closed it earlier. A shadow moves across the narrow gap in the door. Sarah bursts into the bedroom, flicking on the light. The room is empty, the bed perfectly made. She checks the closet, the bathroom. Nothing. Her breathing slows, but the feeling of being watched doesn't go away. Just then her phone buzzes again. Another unknown number. Not again, she thinks. She answers.
They know where you are.
Sarah's blood runs cold. The next morning, Sarah storms into the clinic, her face set with determination. Dr. Lewis is already waiting for her, his calm demeanor unchanged.
Sarah, I wasn't expecting you so soon.
She stands in front of him, her voice steady but laced with anger.
I want another session, now.
Dr. Lewis raises an eyebrow, clearly surprised by her urgency.
Sarah, you're pushing yourself too hard.
Don't tell me what I can handle, I need answers.
Dr. Lewis studies her for a moment before nodding slowly.
Very well.
As Sarah lies back in the chair, the familiar hum of the machine fills the room. Her mind swirls with questions. Who is the man following her? How deep does this conspiracy go? And what did Rachel discover that was so dangerous? The machine begins to hum louder, and Sarah's vision blurs as she slips back into the past. Rachel, is standing in front of the mirror again. The same party outfit, the same 1980s style house. But this time, the scene is different. She's not just watching the party, she's leaving. Rachel grabs a coat and heads for the door, but as she steps outside, the same shadowy figure lingers in the distance. Rachel hesitates, her breath quickening as she moves toward her car. The figure steps forward, just enough for Sarah to see a flash of his face. It's the same man who's been following her. Sarah, still living through Rachel's eyes, stands frozen outside the house. The man, the same one following her now, is lingering in the distance. The air is thick with tension, and Rachel's heartbeat pounds in Sarah's ears as she rushes toward her car. Her hands shake as she fumbles with the keys, but before she can get inside, the shadowy figure steps closer. Rachel gasps, her breath catching in her throat. She knows this man, but it's not fear that's keeping her from running. It's something else. She hesitates, her eyes locking with his. Sarah's eyes snap open. The sudden jolt of reality hits her, and the sterile clinic feels suffocating after the vivid intensity of the memory. Her mind races as she tries to process what she just saw. The man, the same one who's been following her, was there with Rachel. He was watching her. Dr. Lewis watches her from the corner of the room, his expression unreadable, though his eyes seem to be studying her every reaction.
Another breakthrough?
Sarah sits up, her hands trembling as she pulls off the electrodes. Her mind spins, replaying the memory in fragments, trying to make sense of it all.
I saw him. The man who's been following me. He was there with Rachel. He was watching her. Why was he watching her?
Dr. Lewis's brow furrows slightly, but his calm demeanor remains.
Are you certain it was the same man?
Sarah glares at him, her voice shaking with frustration.
I'm not imagining this. He was there, just like he's been here. What was his role in all of this? Why was he watching Rachel?
Dr. Lewis stands slowly, moving toward her with the careful precision of someone who knows they're being scrutinized.
I'm afraid that's something you'll have to discover on your own. I can only guide you through the memories. You're the one unlocking them.
His words feel too rehearsed, too perfectly phrased. Sarah's instincts scream that he's hiding something, but she can't pinpoint what. She needs answers, and she knows she won't get them from him. Later that evening, Sarah hurries up the stairs to her apartment, her mind still reeling from the memory and the man's cryptic warning, "They know where you are." She unlocks her door, her eyes darting around the dimly lit hallway. Every shadow feels heavier, every sound amplified. Inside, she locks the door behind her, breathing a little easier, but the tension in her chest won't release. She can't shake the feeling that someone is watching her. Her phone buzzes on the kitchen counter. Sarah freezes, staring at the screen as the familiar unknown number flashes again. Her heart pounds in her chest. The memory of the last call, "Look behind you," echoes in her mind. She hesitates, her finger hovering over the answer button before she finally swipes to take the call.
What do you want?
There's a moment of silence, just the faint sound of breathing on the other end. Then, the voice returns, cold and detached, sending a chill down her spine.
You've gone too far. We're closer than you think.
Sarah swallows hard, her grip on the phone tightening.
Who are you? Why are you doing this?
The voice is calm, as though her questions don't matter.
You were never meant to remember. You should have left well enough alone.
Sarah's breath catches, the weight of the words sinking in. They were trying to control her memories, just like they had with Rachel. This was bigger than just her trauma. This was about Project Echo.
What happened to Rachel?
There's a long pause, the silence thick with menace.
The same thing that will happen to you if you don't stop.
The line goes dead. Sarah drops the phone on the counter, her hands shaking. The reality of her situation crashes down on her. She's being watched, manipulated, just like Rachel was. The cold, detached voice in her ear isn't just a warning, it's a threat. But the one thing she knows for certain is that she can't stop now. She's in too deep. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. Sarah's heart leaps into her throat. She grabs a knife from the kitchen counter, her hands trembling as she moves towards the door. She peers through the peephole and sees the silhouette of the man, the same man who's been following her. Her pulse races. Should she open it? After a moment of hesitation, she takes a deep breath and unlocks the door, swinging it open. The man stands in the doorway, his expression grim but not threatening. His voice is low, quiet.
They're coming for you. You need to leave.
Sarah stares at him, her mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion.
What do you mean? Who are they?
The man looks over his shoulder, checking the hallway, before stepping inside and closing the door behind him. His presence feels heavy, like a storm on the horizon.
The people behind Project Echo, they know you're getting close to the truth and they don't leave loose ends.
Sarah steps back, gripping the knife tightly.
Why should I trust you? You've been following me, calling me.
The man shakes his head, his voice filled with a quiet urgency.
I've been trying to protect you, but I can't hold them off much longer.
He steps closer, lowering his voice.
They erased your mother's memories, just like they did with Rachel. They'll do the same to you if you don't stop.
Sarah's eyes widen, her chest tightening with shock.
My mother? What are you talking about?
The man's expression softens, but there's no time for sympathy.
She was part of the experiment. That's why you're connected to Rachel, because your mother was involved. You have to leave now, before they find you.
Sarah rushes out of her apartment, the man leading her through the dimly lit streets. Every shadow feels like a threat, every sound a signal that someone is closing in. The weight of his words echoes in her mind. Your mother was part of the experiment. She's in more danger than she ever realized, and the truth about Project Echo is more personal than she could have imagined. The man leads Sarah into a dark, abandoned garage, the flickering overhead lights casting long shadows. They stop near the back, and he checks his surroundings before turning to her.
There's a safe place nearby. You'll be safe there, at least for tonight.
Sarah's voice trembles as she confronts him.
You knew my mother?
The man's face hardens, his voice dropping.
She was one of the first subjects. She never knew the full extent of what they were doing, but they wiped her memories to keep her from talking.
Sarah's hands shake as the full weight of the truth crashes down on her. Her mother had been a victim, just like Rachel, and now they were coming for her.
They're coming, Sarah. You have to decide, run or fight.
Sarah's heart pounds, but her mind is already made up. She looks up at him, determination replacing the fear that's been gnawing at her since this began.
I'm not running. I'm going to finish this.
The man nods, seemingly expecting her answer. He takes a step closer, his voice dropping low.
Then we need to get you the rest of the information. There's a file, a record of your mother's involvement in the project. If we can get it, you'll have everything you need to expose them.
Sarah's breath catches. Her mother. The woman whose past had been wiped clean, just like they were trying to do with Rachel. Her jaw tightens as she nods.
Where's the file?
The man glances around the garage before leaning in closer.
It's in one of their labs, a secure facility. I've been tracking it for years, but getting inside won't be easy.
Sarah exhales sharply, her mind already spinning with the possibilities. She's come this far. There's no turning back now.
Then tell me what I need to do.
Later that night, Sarah and the man stand outside a seemingly derelict building on the outskirts of the city. The faded sign above the entrance reads, Redwood Labs, but the building's windows are dark, and there's no sign of life from the outside.
This place was officially shut down years ago, but they still use it for storage. The file should be inside.
Sarah grips the edge of her coat, a chill running down her spine. She knows this won't be easy, but it's her only shot at finding out the full truth about her mother and about Project Echo. The man hands her a small earpiece.
I'll guide you from here. Stay quiet and be quick.
Sarah nods, slipping the earpiece in place. Her heart races as she follows the man's lead, creeping toward the side entrance. He works quickly, bypassing the lock, and gestures for her to head inside. The interior of the building is as cold and lifeless as it looked from the outside. The long, narrow hallways are lined with dusty, forgotten equipment, and the air smells of decay and neglect. Sarah moves cautiously, her footsteps soft against the cracked tile floor.
Head straight, then take the stairs down to the basement. That's where they keep the archived files.
Sarah's breath is steady, but her nerves are on edge. Every shadow seems to shift. Every distant sound makes her flinch. She can't help but feel like someone, or something, is watching her. She reaches the staircase, her hand gripping the cold metal railing as she descends into the depths of the facility. The further she goes, the more oppressive the atmosphere becomes. The basement is vast, lined with rows and rows of metal shelves packed with boxes, folders, and old filing cabinets. Sarah's eyes scan the room, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information.
The file should be labeled under Classified Echo Subjects. Check the far back shelves.
Sarah weaves through the narrow aisles, her hands brushing against the dusty surfaces of the boxes as she searches for the right one. Finally, her eyes land on a small locked cabinet at the far end of the room labeled Classified Echo Subjects. She kneels down and quickly fumbles with the lock, managing to pry it open. Inside, a collection of folders sits neatly stacked, each one labeled with a subject number. Her breath catches as she pulls out a thick folder with her mother's name printed across the top. Subject hash 001, Karen Reynolds.
Mom.
She flips open the folder, her eyes scanning the contents. Inside, there are medical records, signed consent forms, and reports detailing the early days of Project Echo. Her mother had been one of the first to undergo memory transfer experiments, but something had gone wrong. There were gaps in the reports, sections blacked out, as if someone had tried to erase the truth. Sarah's hands shaking as she continues reading. Her mother's memories hadn't just been manipulated, they'd been selectively erased, entire parts of her past wiped away.
Do you have it?
Sarah's voice trembles as she responds.
I have it. They erased her.
Get out of there, now.
Sarah moves quickly, clutching the folder tightly in her arms as she makes her way back through the labyrinthine hallways. Her footsteps echo in the stillness of the abandoned lab, but something feels wrong. The oppressive silence is broken by a faint sound, a door opening somewhere behind her. Her heart leaps in her chest. She picks up the pace, her eyes darting around, but the sound grows louder. Closer. Suddenly she hears voices, two men talking quietly but urgently. Sarah's breath catches as she slips into a darkened room just off the main hallway, pressing herself against the wall.
She's in here somewhere. Find her.
The hairs on the back of Sarah's neck stand up as she peers out into the hallway. She can see the shadows of two men, both armed, moving down the corridor toward her. Her pulse races. They know she's here.
Stay calm. You need to get out of there before they find you.
Sarah clenches her fists, her mind racing. The exit feels 1,000,000 miles away, and the men are closing in. Minutes later, Sarah bursts through the side door, sprinting into the night. The cold air hits her like a slap, but she doesn't stop. She races toward the alley where the man is waiting, her chest burning with fear and adrenaline. He grabs her arm, pulling her behind a stack of crates as the two men burst out of the building, scanning the area for her. Sarah gasps for breath, clutching the folder tightly to her chest.
Did you get it?
Sarah nods, barely able to speak through her exhaustion and fear.
Yeah, I got it.
The man glances at the folder in her hands, his expression unreadable.
Then we need to leave. They won't stop until they find you.
Later, in the dim light of a small, nondescript apartment, Sarah and the man sit at a small kitchen table. The folder lies open between them, its contents spread out. Sarah flips through the documents again, her hands still shaking.
They erased my mother's memories. They used her like a test subject.
The man nods, his voice low.
She wasn't the only one. There were dozens of subjects. Most of them didn't even know what was happening to them.
Sarah clenches her fists, her anger bubbling beneath the surface. She looks up at the man, her voice steady, but filled with determination.
We have to expose them. We have to make sure they don't do this to anyone else.
The man watches her for a moment, then nods.
We will, but you need to be ready because once you take that step, there's no going back.
Sarah takes a deep breath, her eyes filled with resolve.
I'm ready.
The man studies her for a moment before nodding. He stands, reaching into his jacket pocket, and pulls out a small flash drive.
This has everything, the documents, the files we pulled, even the names of the people behind it all. We leak this, and there's no going back.
Sarah takes the drive, her fingers brushing against its cold surface. She feels the gravity of the decision settling in her bones. Once they make this move, they'll be painting targets on their backs. But there's no other choice.
Let's do it.
The underground parking garage is silent, except for the soft hum of distant traffic. Sarah and the man stand in the shadows, waiting. In the far corner, a lone car pulls up. The headlights sweep across the concrete pillars, illuminating their faces for a brief moment before the car shuts off. The driver's door opens, and a tall, sharp-looking man in a dark suit steps out. His eyes scan the garage, then land on Sarah and her companion. He closes the car door and walks toward them with a calm confidence that makes Sarah's skin crawl. This is the man who's been pulling the strings.
I'm impressed. I didn't think you'd make it this far.
Sarah's fists clench, her heart pounding in her chest. This man, this face of the organization, radiates a controlled menace that fills the air with tension.
Save the theatrics. You know why we're here.
The man in the suit smirks, his eyes cold.
Straight to business. I like that.
He takes a step forward, his hands sliding casually into his pockets.
You've been causing quite a stir with your little investigation. Digging up old files, making noise where there shouldn't be any. You do realize what you're up against, don't you?
Sarah takes a step forward, her voice steady.
We know what you did, to Rachel, to my mother. We have the proof.
The man in the suit raises an eyebrow, clearly amused.
Proof? Oh dear, that's such a quaint idea. Do you really think anyone cares about your proof? We've been doing this for years, and no one's ever stopped us.
Sarah's stomach tightens, But she doesn't back down.
That ends now. We're going public with this.
The man's eyes narrow, and for the first time his confidence wavers.
And you think that'll solve anything? You don't understand the scale of what you're dealing with. This goes far beyond me, beyond any of us.
He takes another step forward, his voice dropping.
This is bigger than you, bigger than your mother. We're saving people from themselves, their memories. They're the real danger.
Sarah's pulse quickens, her mind racing. The man's words echo in her ears, but she pushes the doubt aside. He's just trying to manipulate her, just like they manipulated Rachel.
No, you're lying.
The man in the suit sighs, shaking his head as if disappointed.
Maybe, maybe not. But if you're so determined to ruin your life, go ahead, leak the files. But you won't survive the fallout.
He turns to leave, but before he does, he pauses, glancing back at Sarah.
You won't win. People don't want the truth. They never have.
Without another word, he walks back to his car, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the garage. Sarah watches him go, her heart pounding in her chest, a mix of fear and determination swirling inside her. Back in the small, dimly lit apartment, Sarah and the man sit in front of the laptop. The flash drive rests between them on the table, loaded and ready. All they have to do is hit the button.
Once we send this, there's no going back. They'll come for us and they won't stop.
Sarah takes a deep breath, her hands hovering over the keyboard. Her mind flashes back to her mother, to Rachel, to the years of lies and manipulation. This is her moment, the chance to finally bring it all to light. She looks at the man beside her, his face hardened with resolve.
We have to do this. For them.
The man nods. Sarah's fingers hover over the send button for a split second longer before she presses it. The next morning, the world changes. Television screens across the city flicker to life, showing a breaking news story. Project Echo has been exposed. Documents, files, and internal reports flood the media. News anchors struggle to explain the scale of what's been uncovered, an illegal government-backed memory manipulation project where dozens of people had their memories wiped, manipulated, or transferred without their consent. Images of Rachel Turner, Karen Reynolds, and others who had been affected flash across the screen. Sarah watches the news from a small diner, her heart pounding in her chest. She's done it. The truth is finally out. But even as the world reacts, she can't shake the feeling that it's not over. That man in the suit, his warning still ringing in her ears. You won't survive the fallout. She looks out the diner window, scanning the street for any sign that they're coming for her. She knows it's only a matter of time. Later that evening, Sarah returns to the safe house, her mind still buzzing from the events of the day. The man is already there, waiting for her.
How does it feel, knowing the truth is out there?
Sarah exhales slowly, shaking her head.
I thought I'd feel relieved, but now I just feel exposed.
The man nods, his expression grim.
They won't stop. They'll try to control the narrative to spin this in their favor. You need to be careful.
Sarah turns to him, her voice quiet but firm.
I'm not running, not after everything we've been through. They need to be held accountable.
The man watches her carefully, his expression softening for the first time.
You're braver than I gave you credit for.
Sarah meets his gaze, the weight of everything they've been through together hanging in the air between them.
What happens now?
The man steps closer, his voice low and serious.
Now we fight, and we don't stop until they're all brought down.
As the night falls over the city, Sarah and the man move through the dark streets together. The world might now know the truth about Project Echo, but the fight is far from over. The organization is vast, and those in power will do whatever it takes to silence the truth. But Sarah is ready. She's no longer the scared woman who first walked into Dr. Lewis's clinic. She's a fighter now, and she won't stop until everyone responsible for her mother, Rachel, and the others is held accountable. As they disappear into the shadows, one thing is certain. The truth is out, and there's no going back. They slip into an alley, pausing to catch their breath. The man turns to Sarah, his voice low.
We've crippled them, but it's not done. They'll keep coming unless we finish it.
Sarah nods, her jaw clenched. The fight isn't over until the people responsible for what happened to her mother, Rachel, and the others are gone for good.
Then we end it tonight.
The man watches her for a moment, then nods. The warehouse looms in front of them, a towering structure hidden in the industrial district of the city. It looks like any other old forgotten building, but inside, it holds the heart of Project Echo, the final stronghold.
This is where they control it all, the servers, the records, everything. If we destroy what's in there, they won't be able to rebuild.
Sarah's heart pounds in her chest as they approach the entrance. The fate of the project, and everyone it's hurt, is in her hands now. The inside of the warehouse is cold and silent, filled with the hum of old machinery and servers. Sarah moves carefully through the rows of equipment, her eyes scanning the area. They need to find the central terminal, the core of the operation.
The servers should be in the main control room. We wipe everything and it's over.
Sarah nods, steeling herself as they move deeper into the warehouse. Every step feels heavier, the tension thick in the air. They reach the control room, a large space filled with monitors, flashing lights, and rows of servers. In the center of the room, the main terminal hums quietly, controlling the entire system.
This is it.
The man pulls out a small device, a drive designed to destroy everything in the system. He hands it to Sarah.
Once you plug this in, there's no going back.
Sarah's hands shake slightly as she takes the device. She thinks of her mother, of Rachel, and all the lives destroyed by Project Echo. This is her moment to stop it all. She steps forward, plugging the device into the terminal. The screen flickers as the system begins to break down, files deleting one by one. Sarah watches as the progress bar fills, every bit of data disappearing forever. But as the final files delete, the sound of footsteps echoes through the warehouse. Sarah's heart skips a beat. She knows who it is before she even turns around.
Quite the display.
Sarah spins around to see the man in the suit standing at the entrance, flanked by armed guards. His calm demeanor hides the fury in his eyes.
You've done some damage tonight, Sarah, but you're a fool if you think this ends here.
Sarah steps forward, her voice steady.
It's over. The world knows the truth. You can't hide anymore.
The man in the suit chuckles, shaking his head.
The world may know, but that doesn't mean we're finished. We've always operated in the shadows, and we'll keep going, long after you're gone.
He gestures to his men who step forward, weapons ready.
You think you've won, but this is only the beginning. For every file you've destroyed, there's more. For every step you take, we're already 2 ahead. You can't beat us.
Sarah's breath catches in her throat. His words are laced with menace, and for a moment, doubt creeps into her mind. But then she looks at the man beside her, who nods silently, his eyes full of determination. She knows this is their last chance.
You're wrong. This ends tonight.
Without warning, Sarah draws the weapon she's been carrying, her hand steady as she points it at the man in the suit. The air in the room grows tense as his guards react, raising their weapons in defense. But Sarah doesn't flinch.
Do you really think this will change anything?
Sarah's voice is cold, her resolve unshakable.
It changes everything.
She pulls the trigger. The shot echoes through the warehouse, and the man in the suit collapses, his expression frozen in shock. His guards hesitate, momentarily stunned by the sudden turn of events. The man beside Sarah steps forward, his voice steady but commanding.
Go, now.
The guards exchange glances before backing down, retreating from the room. Without their leader, they have no reason to stay. Sarah and the man step out into the cool night air, the weight of what just happened settling on her shoulders. It's over. The man in the suit, the mastermind behind the project, is gone, and with him, Project Echo has been destroyed. For a moment, they stand in silence, the city lights glowing in the distance.
You did it.
Sarah exhales, her body finally relaxing. She looks at the man beside her, feeling a sense of peace she hasn't felt in a long time.
We did it.
As the first light of dawn breaks over the city, Sarah walks alone through the quiet streets. The weight of everything that's happened still lingers, but she knows she's free now. The people behind Project Echo are gone, and she's finally at peace. She stops for a moment, looking out at the city below. The fight is over, and for the first time, she feels like she can breathe. A soft breeze blows through the street, carrying with it a sense of closure. Later that day, Sarah sits by the window of her apartment, looking out over the city. The news still buzzes with reports about Project Echo, but her part in it is over. She's no longer a victim of the past. She picks up a photo of her mother from the table, her fingers brushing against the frame.
It's over, Mom.
She places the photo back on the table and stands, her eyes looking toward the future. There's a new sense of freedom in her step, a weight lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in a long time, Sarah is free.